Good afternoon and welcome to African Heritage Diaspora Television. Very often we talk about distinguished institutions providing excellence in education, international relations, health, and preventive initiative. Of course, institution like Morehouse College is primus inter pares. What I mean is first among equal, among the historical black colleges. Today I have with me at the studio Professor Julius E. Cole is the director of the Office of the Global Education and the Andrew Young Center for International Affairs of Morehouse College, his initiative, and also his career over the years. Dr. Cole, you are welcome to African Heritage Diaspora Television.
It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Okay. Well, Morehouse College is a household name here in America, and also in the diaspora, and also in the continent of Africa. This program is actually being watched by so many aspirant students, young folks who wants to come to institution. And now we want you to tell us more about Morehouse College. Tell us what makes Morehouse College an household institution in America?
Well, that's a very good question, and one that I think is that's being asked quite a lot today. Morehouse College was founded in 1867 in Augusta, Georgia, and then moved from Augusta, Georgia to Friendship Baptist Church here in Atlanta, and then eventually moved to its current campus. And it became a Morehouse College sometime in the late 1890s, but it's just a wonderful institution dedicated to the education of African-American men. It is the only African-American male college in the United States. So it's just a wonderful institution. We have about 2,600 students. We have about 90 faculty and 62 part-time faculty. We offer something like 25 different majors in the areas of specialization. So it's quite a comprehensive college.
That is quite interesting. Apart from the fact that Morehouse College has produced legends, I mean, in the area of people like Martin Luther King Jr. of blessed memory, and that has been the legends on for the people of the world. Morehouse College has stand distinct in the area of medicine, and that's exactly what many people look at as a college that is producing doctors and also producing international relations people and also distinguished personality. What do you think is the future of Morehouse?
Well, just going back to that whole question about Morehouse producing professional men, yes. I think it's a very good question. When I was a student at Morehouse, it had the reputation at that time of producing more African-American male physicians than any other undergraduate institution in the United States. Okay. We're still producing a large number of physicians, and we are producing a large number of lawyers, ministers, educators, just about every professional field you can think of. But I don't think we can claim that we are the only institution now that is producing the largest number of African-American male physicians. There's another college in Louisiana that seems to be taking over that title these days, and so it's a Catholic university that's there. But I think in terms of males, we may be still the largest, but in terms of co-ed, African Americans, both male and female, I think they've taken over at this point.
Thank you very much. Professor Cole, looking at your credential, this is really, really huge. You have worked in so many areas. I would say that you have distinguished yourself in several areas. You work with Africare, you are the director of Africare, and also you work with, you are actually the director of Morehouse College, Andrew Young Center for International Affairs in the year 1997 to 2002. Yes. And now you came back, and you work with the USAID. You work, you also attended institution in Switzerland. From your global experience and international relations, you build a good credentials, and also you are holding now the Leadership Center at the Morehouse and the Andrew Young in the International Affairs. What are you trying to aspire for the Leadership Center to produce for the people of the world?
Well, actually at Morehouse we have two centers. We have the Andrew Young Center for International Affairs, and we have a separate Leadership Center.
Right.
And the Leadership Center is under the directorship of Lavinia King at the present time, and I'm heading up the Andrew Young Center in the Office of Global Education. I think both the centers aspire to get our young graduates and students more globally involved. We live in a global community, and how do we get our students to partake of that global community? And we're looking at various programs, study abroad, internships in international organizations. We're looking at travel tours in business. We're looking at scientific research abroad. We're looking at every way possible that we can offer our students the opportunity to study and travel abroad. This is very important because we live in a very competitive environment. And if we are to be competitive, even though we may provide a good academic experience, we have to provide that global experience if we're really going to get our people out there as a part of the global community. And that's what we're trying to do. Both in the Leadership Center and in the Andrew Young Center, we're pushing very hard to make our students global citizens.
That's great, and that makes me to now ask you this question of brain drain and brain gain. Africa is looking forward to actually improvise and turn brain drain into brain gain, and to have an institution like this that is diverse and also providing this kind of educational setting for people of African descent and also the global community. What do you think Morehouse what role do you think Morehouse will play in sustainable development of Africa?
Well, I think Morehouse has been involved in educating Africans going back to the 1950s.
Right.
And even further than that, I think some of the more distinguished heads of state and also ministers of finance have been trained at Morehouse. I think the earliest one was from the Minister of Finance from Liberia.
Okay.
He went back to Liberia and became Minister of Finance, and he founded a central bank. But that was coming out in about the 1950s that he was studying at Morehouse. But in the 1950s and 1960s, we had a number of African students coming from Kenya, from Ghana, from Nigeria, coming to study at Morehouse. I remember that very well as a student myself, that we had the Kenya Airlift, and we were taking in students from East Africa, from Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya, and bringing them here to Morehouse. And those students did very well. So I think we've had a very good track record of training African leaders, and that role continues today. It's sort of interesting to note that the African universities are doing a much better job of training their own students. So we're not getting as many African students as we used to get, but still some are coming, and that's sort of very interesting and surprising. Most of our students, I think, come from Nigeria, which is your country. We have a lot of students from Ghana. We have others from Kenya and Tanzania and even South Africa. Okay. One of the interesting things that this year, for the first time, we have a white South African studying at Morehouse. I mean, we've had black South Africans, but this year we've got a full-time student from South Africa who has to be of European origin. I think that's somewhat ironic, but I think we welcome him as a part of the community.
You've already embraced cultural diversity at the Morehouse College, and also, as you said, that you have so much provided a lot of opportunity for students from Africa to study here at Morehouse. Now, in your area, which is international relations, the world is a global village, and the entire world is looking at opportunity to work here and there, train here and there, and also expand their status quo to help people in different areas. Historical black colleges is a nucleus of colleges and universities here in America that have been striving to achieve and attain excellence in several ways. What do you think Morehouse can do in order to provide a kind of opportunity for the striving ones, especially We talk about Morris Brown College.
Oh, yes.
And also Spelman College.
Well, I think the whole Atlanta University Center is playing a very important role.
Yes.
It's interesting that you would raise that subject because there was a recent article in the Wall Street Journal saying that historically black colleges and universities in the United States should be closed.
Yes.
I am adamantly opposed to that perspective and view. I think the historically black colleges in the United States have played a very important role of training African Americans, both female and male.
Right.
And if without those institutions, we would not have made as much progress as we have made in this country to date.
That's right.
And when I was living in Atlanta and I was born here as a child, I went to segregated schools. I couldn't go to the University of Georgia. I couldn't go to Georgia Tech or Emory at the time I was going to school. The only school that I could go to were historically black colleges and university, or go east or way north to another institution that would be willing to accept me. I think colleges like Morehouse, Atlanta University, Spelman, and the other historically black colleges and universities have played a very important role in this country and continue to play an important role in training African Americans. Sort of interesting to note that today we have students who could have gone to Harvard,
Yes.
but they chose Morehouse and Clark, Atlanta, and Spelman because they feel they could get a good education at these institutions.
Yes.
I'll give you an example of why I think it's important. Morehouse is like a brotherhood. Spelman is like a sisterhood.
Okay.
And Atlanta University is like the big uncle and cousin of us all. So
That's
we're
right.
all in a relationship. My mother and brother went to Atlanta University. My brother also finished Spelman. My father finished Marsh Brown. So I feel like I'm an Atlanta University product in so many ways. And these institutions have trained the cream of African American society.
Yes.
And if they had not existed, we would not have the number of doctors, the lawyers, the bankers, the people investment banks that we have today.
Okay.
And we're continuing to produce a great trained and a highly developed African American student from these institutions. And I would hate to see that cease. Just to show you the difference, my daughter went to Yale.
Yes.
And I think she feels that she probably should have gone to an African American school because she would have had friends and relationships
That's right.
at that point in her life that she does not have now. And even though she has friends going back to her Yale days, her friendship in the African American community is not as vast as I would like to see it.
Okay.
So I think, you know, this whole question of professional relationship, the old boys and girls club, is something that most of American societies have had for a long time.
Yes.
And the African Americans are now reaching that point, and I think it's a very proud point for us to be in. Not to say that we want to segregate ourselves,
Right.
but I think we want to have relationships with the people of our race and to have those relationships that are very professional and to help our people. I think that's where we are.
Okay, that's very good. Actually, that takes me further in the area of international relations, of which you are versatile. You've worked in so many countries and also you have worked with so many organizations. Now, the Africa Union, putting the 54 nations together, and now creating an invaluable opportunity for the diaspora. They say that they want to create the 6th region of Africa, which includes the United States, Brazil, the islands, the Caribbean islands, and also the African living outside Africa. What role do you think Morehouse will play in making this possible